I went and bought some sugar, a bag of sugar the other day. I don't go through it as much as I used to in the past when I was baking all the time, but I did run out. My daughter still lives with me. Her boyfriend was living with us for a little bit of time. And so I was baking a little bit because that's the foods that they like to eat. And I love to bake. I still love to bake, even though I don't eat the baked foods as much as I used to, almost none of it. But I had to go and buy sugar. A 2-kilo package of sugar was $2.99. The cantaloupe was $2.99. So this sugar that can last for me now, this bag of sugar can last for months and months and months, compared to a melon that we could technically eat in one sitting, the three of us. And it really blew my mind once again to realize that sugar is so incredibly cheap, and it's inexpensive to gain weight. It's inexpensive to be a sugar burning machine and to sustain our bodies on sugar, even though it's not a healthy way to live. It's inexpensive. If we cut the cantaloupe open, so this is $1.50, and half a bag of this is $1.50, and you can imagine how many cookies and how much cake you can make with this amount of sugar. And this is so much more expensive. So it's actually more expensive to choose the fruit that is a sugar with fiber compared to the white sugar, which has been refined and extracted, and there's no fiber left in it, which means it just goes straight through our system and gives us a sugar rush. Whereas the cantaloupe is very sweet, but it takes longer to digest because there's fiber. And if you're going to decide which are you going to buy based on price, well, of course, you're going to buy the cheapest thing, which is the whole bag of sugar. So is it more expensive to eat on a keto diet? Keto meaning really, really low carbs, and you're a fat burning machine. You're not a sugar burning machine. Our bodies would be representing the machine. You have to be creative. I find you have to think through, what are you going to eat that week? What are you going to eat when you go to the grocery store? And not just decide based on the price of one thing compared to another. Look and see, is this going to nourish my body? Can of pop, can of soda going to nourish my body even though it has a lot of sugar? Or am I going to choose something that is sweet because I feel like I want something sweet, but that's going to have the fiber in it, and it's not going to raise blood sugar so high that we get a sugar high and a sugar low? This is still something I'm learning about, as I have lowered my carbs in the last 2 years since I've lost all the weight and since I'm trying to maintain the weight, and trying to unlearn so many years of buying that bag of sugar and baking with it, thinking that we need these carbs, we need sugar to live. In the 70s and 80s, they were not saying that sugar is bad. They were promoting sugar, just like in the 50s and 60s when they were promoting smoking. And we are shocked at that. Based on my own experience and what I'm reading, what I'm watching from various doctors and scientific research, to see that sugar is actually what smoking was, in terms of it was promoted, and now we're seeing this is horrible for us to be eating this much sugar. It's not natural. We can't just go out and harvest a bag of white sugar. You know that it's been processed. If you live in the right climates, right now we have a foot of snow on the ground. I'm in Canada in the winter. We can't just go out and pick an orange off the tree or pick the cantaloupe from the vine on the ground. We can't do that right now. We rely on the locations that can produce those year round, and they can ship them to us, and I'm so, so grateful for that. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to survive on a variety diet, basically. We would have to rely on what we had canned and preserved and kept in a freezer throughout the year, which I actually grew up doing 45, 50 years ago when I was growing up. And we did. We grew all our own food, we harvested it, we preserved it, we canned it, we froze it, and we had a lot of land. We had 180 acres, that's what I grew up on, and we had tons of land to be able to do that. I don't have that option right now. So I rely on farmers. I rely on people to harvest and to preserve and to freeze and to dry the food, etc. And I'm so, so grateful for that. So going back to, is it cheaper to eat keto and low carb? No, it's not necessarily cheaper. But if we are going to not have to pay for health problems in the future, it's worth a little bit more money maybe than not buying that bag of sugar, but buying the cantaloupe if you want something sweet, or buying the blueberries, or buying the strawberries, or whatever you have available to you. Maybe it's bananas. Bananas are super cheap. I never used to eat bananas. I hated the texture. I've had eating disorders, and the textures of certain things I just can't stomach. But I've gotten used to bananas. They're less expensive. So I cut my bananas in half, and you can peel them, and then you have a nice little snack. When you're getting over your sugar addiction, it's really helpful to have carb foods that have fiber in them. The whole foods, one ingredient food, half a banana. I put the other half in the fridge. And yes, they might go black on the outside. You can cut off the end or eat it. Doesn't really matter. And you don't have to eat the whole banana. Just because bananas are a certain shape, you don't have to eat the whole banana. You could even eat a quarter of a banana, just a bite, just to remind yourself that there's still sugar in the world, and you can get through this stage of getting over the refined sugar and eating natural sugar that does have carbs, but it's got fiber, so it's not going to shoot your insulin up as high. And that's how it's working really well for me to get over my sugar addiction. I'm able to maintain weight. I don't overeat bananas. I can eat a half a banana or a quarter banana. I don't overeat it. Sugar in cookies and cakes, breads, candy, I eat way more sugar because there's no fiber. It just goes straight through my system, and it's like a drug for me. Sometimes if I'm wanting a treat, I cut up fruit. Now the strawberries, we're up in Canada, so all these strawberries are coming from down south, and so they happen to be on sale this week, half price, which was amazing. Actually, these ones were organic. They were $6 off. They were $1.40 for a packet, or $1.50 for a package. So that was a loss leader, which means the grocery store isn't making any money on it, but the grocery store brings us in, and then we'll buy more food. I whip up whipping cream with nothing in it. It's literally just whipped cream. I don't add vanilla and sugar like I used to in the past. Put it on some strawberries. Because my carb and my sugar intake is so much lower nowadays, this is sweet enough. And this is like dessert. Sometimes I'll have this before I eat a meal. Sometimes this is after. So this is a quick dessert, or a quick reminder that there's still some sweet in the world, and you don't have to give up everything to enjoy one ingredient foods. This is one ingredient whipping cream, one ingredient strawberries, one ingredient foods. I'm still recovering from my sugar addiction, and these kinds of things help me through it. When I can't last one meal a day or 2 meals a day because I'm doing intermittent fasting, I can have a half a banana, and sometimes I'll put a half a banana with some frozen blueberries or something. And that is as good as eating a chocolate chip cookie in the past. I have trained my brain to experience some enjoyment from that. Actually doesn't spike my sugar enough to make me want another bowl and another bowl of bananas and strawberries and a bit of cream or something. In the past, I would eat chocolate chip cookie after chocolate chip cookie after brownie after, a bagel, muffin. I could not stop until I was full. I hated that feeling of being full, but I could not stop. I don't overeat the banana. I can have just a half a banana and I'm happy. I am still recovering from this addiction to the high carb food, from baking and using up that whole bag of sugar in a very short time. I grew up with a family that we baked all the time, and we would buy the huge bags of white sugar. You can't even buy them, I don't think, in the store right now. I haven't seen them around. You can buy a big bag of flour, but not the huge bags of sugar. And we would go through that. And I would even do that even after I was in my first marriage. I would bake so much that we'd go through this huge bag of sugar all the time because we were just baking and baking and baking. So eating low carb, yes, it's a little bit more expensive, but I also lost 80 pounds, which means I'm actually not eating for an 11 or 12-year-old. The 80 pounds, it's as if I'm also feeding another member of the family. I'm not eating that amount anymore. So I am eating less total quantity of food. My grocery bill hasn't actually gone down a whole lot. Mind you, we're just coming out of 3 years of COVID. The COVID shutdown was exactly 3 years ago this coming week in March of 2020. And so this is March of 2023. It's been 3 years, and yes, inflation has gone crazy. So I'm eating less. COVID came along, increased the price. So I know that 3 years ago, if I was eating what I am now, and I'd lost the 80 pounds, and I'm not also feeding as if I have a 12-year-old in the house who's eating, then I know the price of my grocery bill would be lower. But this is life. I'm trying to find inexpensive ways to eat keto or eat low carb. I don't eat keto all the time. I intermix it with higher carbs days and lower carbs days. For me, higher carbs means eating the banana, eating some blueberries, eating some cantaloupe, and the potatoes, sweet potatoes, white potatoes, yellow potatoes, all of those kinds of things have carbs in them, but I'm not tempted to overeat on them. And that to me is always the key, to say, okay, I'm not feeding my addiction to this anymore. I'm not eating based on my addiction. I'm eating foods that are going to satisfy me, and I'm full and I'm happy, and I'm super excited about continuing this lifestyle, continuing this way of eating, because I feel so good about my body right now. I'm feeling better and better about just being healthy, having thicker hair, having clearer skin, having more energy, regular blood pressure. It's wonderful. And so I'm going to continue to not buy that bag of sugar as much as I can, unless there's a special occasion. I made waffles the other day. That was a special occasion. That used to be normal for me. So now I'm seeing it, as Mark Hyman and some other people have talked about it, as sugar being the recreational drug. Well, it just so happens the recreational drug in our society is super inexpensive, which means we're going to be eating it a lot, and it's promoted to us all the time. So is it more expensive to eat keto? A little bit. But if you can learn ways, creative ways of lowering the prices, eating foods that maybe are low in carbs, but not completely carb free, as you learn to recover from your sugar addiction. If you feel you have a sugar addiction like I have, and I'm recovering from it, then you can find inexpensive ways to eat keto and low carb. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel. I'm so excited about all the people that are subscribing and messaging me and letting me know that this is helpful for them and inspiring to them. If I can do it, anybody can do it. If I can lose 80 pounds, I feel anybody can do it. I did it without exercise. It just took some time. I learned a lot. I spent hundreds of hours learning about intermittent fasting, eating low carb, eating keto, and all of these things have helped me to learn more myself, to use my body and my experience as an experiment. And it continues, and I'm going to keep documenting it and letting you guys know what's working, and hopefully some of these things will help you out. Thanks so much for watching.